You gotta love Atlus. They're constantly dropping well-received games. That is when they're not releasing excessive amounts of spin-offs and re-releases. Seriously, just because it's called Persona 5 doesn't mean you need to drop 5 different spin-offs about the damn game. Nevertheless, today we're going to be talking about the latter. SMT 5 Vengeance dropped about 2 months ago. I was a little hesitant about buying it, despite dumping almost 100 hours into the original. So today I asked the simple question: is Vengeance worth a $60 price tag? Or are you better off using that money on something more productive, like your kid's college fund? Or gambling, I don't know, I'll leave that up to you, dealer's choice. As always, I'm going to recap the story, but I'll leave the review portion of the video timestamp below. Probably. We open in a dream sequence, where the voice is telling us that this mysterious girl will bring about the end of the world. So we free her. You think I'm going to start listening to the voices in my head now? Freeing her snaps us out of the dream, where we meet our protagonist, who I'll only be referring to as Young Man, for reasons that'll soon be very evident.
Young man, young man, young man, young man, young man.
We walk home from school with our classmates Tao and the siblings Miyazu and Yuzuru. Apparently a bunch of people have been going missing, so it's better to stick together to be safe. Before we can even make it onto the train, Yuzuru and Tao have disappeared, and we abandon Miyazu to go look for them. So much for safety. We find Dazai, a young, upstart YouTuber, and the school's punching bag, who's filming one of his classic prank videos. We track down Yuzuru when an earthquake hits, and we awaken the apocalypse. I always knew YouTube pranksters would be the end of humanity, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Dazai gets kidnapped by an angel, and we venture into the desolate wasteland that was once Tokyo. After about a good 15 steps or so, we get outnumbered by demons. I can proudly say that at the very least I lasted longer than Dazai. I'm done for. I can already see the light.
Young man, if you wish to live, take my hand.
Our demonic savior is the proto-fiend, Algami. He extends his hand, turning us into a magic-wielding femboy called a Nahobino, giving us the power necessary to combat demons. We meet up with Yuzuru, who has no questions about our new appearance, or Dazai's kidnapping. He is more focused on the engineering marvel sitting right behind him. It's a beauty to look at. Yuzuru, dodge! He gets saved by Yoko Hiramine, another student who ended up here. After surviving his near-death experience, Yuzuru goes out to explore the netherworld by himself. He's a brave man. A very, very, very stupid man, but brave nonetheless. That means we get stuck with Yoko. Luckily, she can defend herself thanks to her training at the San Marina Girls Academy. Strange, I thought they closed down a while back, but we make our way to Tokyo Tower, where Algami has a war flashback about the events of 18 years ago, readying up to fight hordes of demons when Lucifer appears, announcing that he's killed God. More like sat back and watched him get Frey-kugeled for 6 days and 6 nights, but I digress. We try heading towards the diet building but get dragged away by the demon Nama, a member of the Kadishtu. She tries seducing a party consisting of 3 women and a femboy. You can connect the dots on how that ended. We arrive at the diet building and are met with a foot scene. Don't tell me Quentin Tarantino was collabing with Atlus now. All these dead angels were slaughtered by the demon, Nuwa. Our battle gets cut short by Yakumo, her bodyguard, who hates demons. Yeah, these two are regular Will and Jada. They tell us the way back to the real world, and we find Dazai cowering in the corner like a little bitch, because he's scared of the sockless snake lady and her military corporal cosplaying bodyguard. We wait around for Yuzuru and use an Amalodrome to take us back to our world, where we get surrounded by a bunch of angels, ready to break the 6th commandment. Apparently we violated the will of God. She thinks whatever we did was bad, just wait till she finds Dazai's search history. Tao appears, saving us from this self-righteous minion known as Abdiel, and she takes us to meet Koshimizu, the Japanese Prime Minister, and the head of Bethel's Japan branch. He explains that the Tokyo we were just in is the real Tokyo that was destroyed 18 years ago. The Tokyo we've been living in was created by God before his death, and he drafts us into the war against demons. It was either that or death, so... The next day, Yoko transfers into her class, one of the most prestigious schools in the country, and they don't even have a uniform ready for her. How unprofessional. That night on the school rooftop, Tao tells us her friend Sahori is being bullied, which is when Yoko appears, chiming in with a few words of wisdom.
Kill the girls bullying her.
Speaking of homicidal women, the next day on our way to school, the train station gets attacked by Nama, and it ends just like our last encounter. Noah and Yakumo inform us that demons are flooding in from Josuji Temple. They're being led by Lamu, who's at the school right now pressuring teenage girls to partake in unholy acts with him. Nothing disrespectful. He just wants to use Sahori to become a Nahobino. In exchange, he'll end her bullying by throwing him off the 3rd floor roof. Before they can follow through with that plan, Tao is able to save Sahori, allowing us to eliminate Lamu. You see, demons are no match when met with an unbreakable bond that's been forged through years of enduring hardship together. Sahori succumbs to missing half her internal organs, but Tao regenerates from the injury that has taken her best friend. Yuzuru barges in ready to swing on Dazai until he's reunited with Sahori, because he let Miyazu get kidnapped. We go back to the netherworld to save her and the other students that were kidnapped by demons. On the way we find another one of the Kadishtu, Aisha. Unlike Nama, she wants to help people. She knows how hard it is being a teenager. and she's helping them deal with their insecurities by forcibly removing them. She had good intentions. It's a shame I have to do this to her, but get your ass back in the boiler room, Evelyn Kruger. We meet with Fionn McCumhill, who informs us that the missing students are at a fairy village nearby. Most of them, I mean. Miyazu was still missing because bitch-ass Dazai failed to protect her again and let her get taken by A-Chef, who turns Yuzuru against us with the promise that he can have Miyazu if he wins. I respect him fighting for an admirable cause, but not admirable enough to let myself get embarrassed in front of Femjamin over there. Since he was no match against the power of androgyny, Miyazu is about to get skewered. Dazai tries to stop A-Chef with a Nagi, but a mysterious demon appears powering up his fireball into a meteor. Nice work, team. And Dazai. Let's head back to the fairy village. I hear it's the meteor's turn to cook tonight. What the hell? Can't have shit in Dot. The village was turned into salt, and after reporting the incident to Koshimizu, he reveals that people in the real world are also getting ionized. So we return back to Dot to find this serial sodomizer. And we run into Nuwa and Yakumo, who believe an angel is causing the ionization of demons and humans. They also reveal that the Kadishtu are gathering Magasuhi for a ritual of sorts. For now, we return to Bethel HQ, where we learn that Miyazu has been taken by Bethel Egypt, causing Yuzuru to get depressed because he let his sister get kidnapped, for the third time, this week. But some quick Dazai slander is all it takes to cheer him up enough to go save his sister. We rush the Egyptian base, where we're greeted at the front door by Isis, who kindly informs us that Miyazu came willingly. She'll gladly take us to go meet her. I'm not falling for that demon's trickery. We confront Kansu, who reiterates that Miyazu chose to reside here. I've seen the first episode of Moon Knight. I know he can't be trusted either. Miyazu interrupts to tell us that she came by her own accord. She'd rather take her chances living with demons than the brother who let her get taken thrice in 48 hours. And so he can live his life without worrying about her health. Kanzu gives us the black feather needed to summon the angel, Mastema, who's trying to stop the Kadishtu by cutting off their Magasuhi supply. How's he doing that? Well, I'll let Dazai here provide an example. Mastema promises to revert the Salted if we can defeat the Kadishtu. After we leave, he unsodomizes Dazai and gives him an off-screen power boost. Nuwa and Yakumo tell us that the Kadishtu are almost done gathering Magatsuhi, and are headed to our side for one last collection. Koshimizu tells us that people are suddenly collapsing, landing on the brink of death, and it's most likely connected to the Kadishtu. In this time-sensitive situation, we have a long heart-to-heart talk with Yuzuru on the dorm roof. Yuzuru plans to become a Nahobino, by fusing with Koshimizu, who's actually the demon Tsukiyomi. The Kadishtu set a Magasuhi trap at the temple, which is the cause behind the sudden collapsings. Nuwa and Yakumo want to use it to bait out the Kadishtu, but Yuzuru prefers that innocent civilians not be used as unwilling sacrifices. We settle this argument with a quick match of rock, paper, sakanagi. We go back into Dot to stop the Kadishtu once and for all, but we're stopped by Agrit. Lucky for her, she gets the honor of meeting the Hand of God. The last member of the Kadishtu, Lilith, reveals that Yoko has been working undercover for them this whole time. You see, much like Tao, Yoko was a saint, but instead of getting a fun slice-of-life high school experience, her teachers try to have her killed and God sealed her away for 20 years. But Yoko chooses to fight alongside us, because through the strength of our bonds, there's no obstacle we cannot overcome. What, did you think this was Persona? No! The Kadishtu revived Tiamat, killing Tao, and almost sacrificed the Nahobino. But Aogami sacrifices himself so the young femboy can live. Lilith sacrifices herself so Yoko can get all her memories back of why she hated God in Bethel. Dazai went power hungry after getting fingered by Mastema, and he has Abdiel impale Yuzuru. It's okay, I can fix this. Damn it, my healer's dead and the one time I run out of revival beads, this happens. Koshimizu reveals that Aogami was actually his brother, Susanoo, meaning we should be able to transform to avenge Aogami and Yuzuru. We fuse with Koshimizu to become a less colorful, grungy looking femboy that bears a strong resemblance to Soifon from Bleach. Mastema tells us that Yoko has broken into Bethel's holy ground, the Shakan. She's here to regain the power that God took from her. She reclaims her power, turning into a goddess. She plans to use God's throne, the Empyrean, to destroy the world. We should probably stop her as soon as possible. But, I'll do it tomorrow. We go back to the dorm, and at the rooftop we find Tao, who survived death, again. This time awakening to her powers as a goddess of creation, who will guide us to the Empyrean. Yakumo informs us that Nuwa died protecting him from Tiamat, and he's done with the netherworld. He's going back to our world, where the city needs him. Look at this magnificent hero go. He started as an angry orphan and became, well, a different kind of angry orphan. Before we can ascend God's throne, there's one vital piece we're missing. The unstoppable might of the Naho-Biho. Even the demi-fiend himself trembles at the might this monstrous being possesses. We politely ask Zeus and Odin for their keys, and when they refuse, we unleash the Naho-Biho on them. He single-handedly eviscerated them so graphically that out of fear, The devil's right hand, Beelzebub, gives us the last key needed to enter the Temple of Eternity, the last obstacle in our way before we can reach the Empyrean. At the top of the temple, we're stopped by Dazai and Abdiel. It's only fitting that they meet their end like Yuzuru did, with a big-ass spear. We open the portal to do more climbing. Are you kidding me? After 75 more staircases, we reach the Empyrean. As we're about to take the throne, Yoko appears, and explains that she wants to destroy all other worlds to rebuild, free of God's will. But Tao wants to use the throne to create a world of peace. Ultimately, the decision falls on us. We have to choose between the woman who can't go 5 minutes without sustaining lethal injuries, and Eren Yeager. We go with Yoko, and Mastema appears using Tiamat's power against us. It's over. And in my final moments, I finally understand what the Deadpool opening was trying to tell me for almost a decade now. Never get involved with a short-haired, pale goth girl, because you'll be left lying in the fetal position, gasping for air from the huge fucking you just got. The Empyrean was right in my sights. Now the only thing left I'm seeing is a bright light.
Young man, if you wish to live, take my hand.
Aogami managed to escape from Tiamat, and while in there he learned her weakness. Koshimizu dies using the Karndra on Yoko, while we hit Tiamat with one last Murakuma. Mastema tries to intervene in a battle that I only need one word to describe. Now we're free to recreate the world however we see fit. Together we can... Get the hell out of here, Lucy, you're ruining the vibe! As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, Yoko and the Nahobino destroy all other worlds, and prepare to create a world of freedom. SMT 5 was the first mainline SMT game I ever played, and it set a good example of what to expect from the rest of the series. After beating the original, I spent the next week doing New Game Plus and get the other 3 endings. I understand it was far from perfect, but a lot of issues get remedied in Vengeance. Of course, the biggest change is to the story. Like other enhanced editions, don't expect to immediately hop into the new content. Early on, the seeds are planned for a future payoff, but a lot of what's happening is going to be the same as vanilla. But there's enough minor changes and new features to make you feel like it's not just 5 all over again. Like, instead of Aogami essences being in the 74-sided D&D dice, now you get to see how they died. You might find one strung up on a light post. You might see a damaged torso crawling away. It adds an extra layer to a plot point that gets tossed aside in 5. Magatsuhi rails are new fast travel systems. They could be shortcuts or take you to secret areas for items and essences. The new Nahobino form felt like it was tailor-made to my preferences. It has a color scheme that I almost always end up using in character creators. And the new moves that come with it are beautifully animated. I never skipped any of them. However, you'll quickly find that Vengeance suffers from the Atlus Enhanced Edition curse of being made a lot easier, thanks to the additions made from the base game. Innate abilities are passive skills. Some might give you the advantage in battle, others might help you with negotiations, and then there's the Demon Hunt. Every once in a while, a demon will get a free boost to make them viable for longer. It could be a stat boost, new skill, sometimes both, and after major story events, Aogami will give you 3 skill points for free, making the game so much easier. I went mostly strength and barely even struggled. At one point, my strength stat alone was higher than the combined stat of some of my demons. One of the bigger additions is guest characters. You'll switch who you have with you at certain points. Most of the times you'll have Tao and Yoko, other times you partner with Yuzuru, and at one point you could have a full party of guest characters, which isn't a bad strategy. They're more balanced than demons, coming with a variety of buffs, debuffs, and elemental coverage, as well as being able to use items, which is an ability that doesn't get unlocked for demons till the late game. They added fusion skills, which I never used, but I know a little over half of them are pretty much the same. Severe damage with pierce and debuffs. There's some unique ones, but the way I played, I didn't really bother to use them with Sakunagiing my way through the game and Murakumoing the endgame. The new Nahobino skills are some of the best in the game, but they come with weird side conditions, I think is the best way to describe it. Like there's Heavenly Akumi, which does more damage based on the amount of debuffs on an enemy. Okay, it's an SMT game. No reason not to have debuffs on an enemy, right? Well then there's Lunar Hurricane, which does more hits based on the difference between your agility and your opponent's agility. And finally, my personal favorite, Parasaline Blur, which you can only use after dodging an attack. I'm pretty sure this is the devs' way of trying to fix how broken strength was from the original, so they added extra modifiers so people try out different builds. The new demons have really great designs. A few that stood out to me are Kudlok and Kreshnik, who are basically Dracula and Alucard. And then, this one's for my Dandadan fans out there, the Turbo Granny. It completely caught me off guard that it was even in the game. Unfortunately, instead of stealing shafts, she stayed in the compendium because I found it when I was too overleveled. And you can't mention new demons without bringing up the Nahobiho. The second I found him, he stayed with me to the very end. And the biggest fix is how underdeveloped the cast was. Now characters are more fleshed out throughout the story. You get to see new interactions between characters that never shared the screen in vanilla. I can't really go into detail without talking about spoilers, so before I go into spoiler territory, let me give a quick outro for those of you who haven't finished or bought the game yet. Vengeance is worth a playthrough, whether you've already played 5 or trying to get into SMT, but I wouldn't exactly call it a must-play. Trust me, you're listening to a guy who's played the game 2, technically 6 times now. If I were you, I'd wait for it to go on sale. Or you can do what I did and hit on a GameStop worker until they give you a discount. He actually ended up being a great guy. He's taking him to go see that new Deadpool movie, so 2 for 1, I guess. That's it for the spoiler warning. Click off this and preferably onto one of my other videos, but let's get into it. The characters actually have character now. I know S&T isn't as character focused as, let's say, Persona, but there's plenty of key scenes spread throughout that develop each character's drive and reasoning, the best example being Nuwa and Yakumo. Their added screen time gives you a closer look into their dynamic. They're less villains and more anti-heroes now, making you sympathize with Yakumo after he reveals Nuwa died protecting him, and arguably his best scene is very missable. If you go back to Tokyo during the endgame and talk to an NPC, you'll find out he's chosen to protect the people of Tokyo, and his final scene at the shrine is him paying respects to the victims of the Kadishtu, finally showing him caring about humanity instead of just talking about it. Dazai's turn doesn't suddenly fall out of the sky now. You see Mastema have a heavy hand in what happens to him. By talking to NPCs, you'll hear about Dazai going from cannon fodder to becoming the MVP in the Battle of Chiyoda. By the time you see him again after Tiamat's release, he's gone completely power hungry. So much so that he has Yuzuru, the guy he was calling his friend a couple hours ago, be impaled straight through the heart. While I personally would have preferred a slower burn to his descent, it's still handled better than it was originally. To me, Aogami was kind of forgettable in the last game. The only 2 scenes I remember involving him are the beginning and the end, but now he interacts with you more, trying to understand humanity, and the demon hunt did wonders for him. He's constantly showing concern for the protagonist. He's no longer a plot device and more of a partner. His and Yuzuru's death have a deep impact on Koshimizu. I really liked what it did to him. He no longer cares about rebuilding the world how he envisioned. He doesn't even attempt to get you to see things his way. At one point, I think it was in the demon hunt, he tells you something along the lines of, "I don't care what you want to do with this world. I'll follow you to the bitter end, so long as we avenge my brother and Yuzuru along the way." It sucks he didn't get one last goodbye with the protagonist, but it fit his character arc, so I can't be too mad. Tao and Yoko are 2 sides of the same coin, since they're the new Law and Chaos reps. Tao almost feels like she's been ripped straight out of a Persona game. She's bright-eyed, always trying to see the good in everyone, and ultimately she just wants her friends to live long, happy lives. You can catch Yoko almost sympathizing or patronizing her at times. It's almost like she used to think like Tao at one time, before being turned away by everyone she'd ever known. The teachers who tried to have her killed, Bethel, even God turned his back on her and sealed her away, and made her develop a bitter worldview, making her deviate from the typical shonen way of thinking that people can be saved and demons and humans alike can be trusted to, screw it, just kill them. She was, in my opinion, the best character, but she felt very underutilized the last quarter of the game. It makes me wish the alignment choice was made before trying to reach the Empyrean. That way you have more screen time with Yoko. I feel that would have been better than just being stuck with Tao the whole time. But overall, Yoko was easily my favorite character in this game. It's almost poetic that the 2 characters who was writing I didn't like just so happened to be siblings. Yuzuru felt like wasted potential. He mainly serves as character development for Koshimizu, and especially Miyazu. A lot of his new scenes revolve around her, and how he needs to protect her. She's the only family he has left, which wouldn't be a problem if Miyazu's storyline didn't feel like a glorified side quest. Maybe this is my fault. I expected a much larger role for her, possibly even being the new neutral rep, but she gets maybe 10 more minutes of screen time? I'm not even joking. There's a side quest she gives you in the beginning, then she stops the Kansu fight, and finally trying to have you killed. I cared more for the pixie I fused away in the beginning of the game than I ever did for Miyazu. Then her ending is so anticlimactic. Aside from being locked behind a side quest, she tries to get Kansu to kill you and Koshimizu, to avenge Yuzuru, which I would have liked a lot more if immediately after the fight she didn't go, "I don't need him anymore. I have my big teal protector now. Ayo director, my bad." She gave up so easy it's almost comical. Look at the Kadishtu. They were mad at God for millennia and still didn't give up. Speaking of which, I didn't realize till after I finished the game how perfect they were to be the main villains in Vengeance, because I don't usually go looking into the mythological background of S&T demons. Avatars, Persona, whatever you want to call them. It wasn't until after I finished the game that I learned that they're the forgotten wives of Adam, who were cast aside in favor of Eve, which coincide with Yoko's character arc perfectly, and adds more meaning to her ending. I didn't know how to feel about the new endings at first. I had to sit on them for a few days, but I ultimately came around to them. Tao's ending reminds me a lot of AOT, in that the cycle will eventually continue. Someone else will come for God's throne, but by the time that day comes, those close to her will have already lived long, happy lives. So it doesn't matter to her what the next person chooses to do. Then there's the ending I went with. The one where you and Yoko destroy all other worlds to build from scratch. The biblical parallels are what really hammered that home for me. Because Yoko believes you're creating a world full of endless possibility. That they're creating something new from what the old God envisioned. But the background imagery shows otherwise. Her and the Nahubino parallel Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, complete with a snake and everything, implying that whatever they do create will eventually end up like the world she grew to hate. Overall, I feel like Vengeance falls into the same pattern as every other Atlus Enhanced Edition, at least the ones I've played. Better story, but the abundance of new features and quality of life enhancements make the game a lot easier. Let me know what S&T games you guys want to see me cover next. I've been meaning to play Devil Survivor, so I might give that a try eventually. Well, that's all I got for this one. I don't want to be late. I have that date with the GameStop cashier in about 10 minutes. the shit I do for content. Subscribe, or don't. Either way, I'm gonna head out. Later.